Susan had always dedicated her life to her family. A widow for 10 years, she raised her children, William and Emily, alone after losing her husband when they were still young. Susan had no time for herself. Her heart was bound to the memory of her late husband. The first few years were difficult, but over time, she grew accustomed to living for others, her children, the home, her job. The happiness she once had with her husband seemed like a distant past, a lost dream. However, as time passed, something unexpected happened. At a church event, Susan met Robert. He was kind, affectionate, and made Susan feel alive again, as if the love she thought she had lost was returning to her. Robert made her smile in a way she hadn't in years. But despite her happiness, she was deeply concerned. How would her children react? William and Emily were grown, but she knew neither of them would easily accept the idea of another man in her life. Susan hesitated. She decided to keep the relationship a secret, fearing that the truth might hurt them. She thought that maybe, with time, they would understand or even accept it. She didn't want to reopen wounds, especially since William and Emily were still grieving the loss of their father. But her love for Robert grew, and the secret became an increasingly heavy burden to bear. The difficult decision between staying with Robert and seeking her own happiness, or giving him up to continue fully dedicating herself to her family, was an unbearable weight for Susan. She felt torn between the love that made her feel alive and the loyalty to her children. Each choice seemed to pull her further from the other, and she didn't know how to balance these two important realities. The pain of having to choose between them left her lost, unsure of which path to take. Then, William and Emily discovered the relationship. Their reaction was immediate. They didn't say a word but grew distant. The pain was visible, and the rejection was clear. They stopped visiting Susan's house. Visits became infrequent, until they eventually stopped altogether. Susan, heartbroken and desperate, tried to understand what she had done wrong. She just wanted to be happy, but it seemed that in making this choice, she was pushing her children away forever. On lonely nights, Susan sought solace in her faith. She prayed, asking God to guide her, to show her the right path. She knew she couldn't choose between the love of her children and Robert's love, but at the same time, she didn't want to give up either. The pain of seeing her children reject her and drift away, without a clear explanation, hurt more than she had imagined. It wasn't just their love that was at stake. It was trust, friendship, and the years of dedication. It was on one of these quiet nights of prayer that Susan felt a sense of peace. God seemed to be listening to her words. It wasn't about convincing her children or having a difficult conversation anymore. Susan realized that the power of faith and patience would help her overcome this situation. The next morning, Susan made a decision. She sent a message to her children, not demanding explanations or trying to convince them that her love for Robert was legitimate. She expressed, with an open heart, what she was living. She shared her desire to be happy alongside Robert and, above all, spoke of her love for them and how that would never change, affirming that she wanted to see them happy. She asked that, over time, they find it in their hearts to accept Robert into their lives. She didn't demand that anything change immediately, but every day, she sent a new message of love to her children. She knew that sometimes faith requires patience, that time is needed to heal wounds, and that the truth always reveals itself at the right moment. Over the following weeks, Susan continued her life. She and Robert kept seeing each other. She knew that her children needed their time, and that, more important than any discussion, was trusting in the power of faith. Susan felt in her heart that, eventually, her children would understand what she had tried to explain. And that's what happened. Over time, William and Emily began to understand. The messages from their mother touched something deep within them. It wasn't a direct conversation, nor a discussion, but a quiet process of reflection. They, over time, remembered everything their mother had done for them. They remembered how she had sacrificed her own dreams for so many years, and how, by choosing Robert's love, she wasn't abandoning them, but seeking something she also deserved, happiness. One afternoon, William and Emily arrived at their mother's house, together. They said nothing but hugged her. It was a simple gesture, but full of meaning. They no longer needed explanations, for they had found the answer within themselves. Moral of the story: true faith doesn't require haste or imposition. Sometimes, answers come when we least expect them, in God's time. Love, with patience and understanding, is capable of healing wounds and transforming hearts. What do you think about Susan's journey of balancing love, family, and faith? How do you think patience and faith played a role in her relationship with her children? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories.